Yeah, perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Phoebe. I'm the director of Repair Cafe Wales. I'm also going to be speaking on behalf of Benthyg Cymru a little bit today. We're two organisations that work very closely together in this space. So I will do my best to represent them to their full justice. So what are repair cafes? Repair cafes are pop-up community initiatives that operate across the country, and they enable people to bring in their broken items and have them fixed completely for free by volunteers. So they're really lovely community spaces where anything from a toaster to a ripped pair of jeans to a broken bike to a laptop can be mended completely for free by volunteers. And the aim of these spaces is that they reduce waste, so they stop us throwing away items that can be very easily fixed, also stop us buying new items, so reduce the kind of carbon emissions associated with unnecessarily buying new items. But also they do things beyond the kind of environmental scope. They also help share skills. So within a repair cafe, we'll really encourage people to kind of sit across from each other, from their fixer. So they might learn some fixing skills for themselves, but also so they can feel a little bit more confident in looking after their items. I think lots of us nowadays are, myself included, very guilty of not being very hands-on with our items. So we find lots of people bringing in things where they're just not sure how to maintain them. So that could be things like understanding how to properly empty a lawnmower or clean out a hoover, for example, which is stopping it from working. So we see lots of kind of maintenance skills being taught across communities too. And then also there's a big community cohesion element to what we do. So the kind of cafe element of a repair cafe refers to the lovely tea and cake that we always have on offer in the spaces, but also it's really about enabling people to kind of come together and have a chat to local people, to feel that much more connected to their community. We have lots of our volunteers that come along that say they find, as with lots of volunteering initiatives, that it really helps improve kind of their mental well-being. It helps them make friends. It helps reduce loneliness and isolation. So there's lots of social good that these spaces do beyond the kind of obvious environmental impact that they have. With libraries of things, so libraries of things are what Benthyg Cymru set up. So Benthyg is the Welsh word for to borrow. And libraries of things are very similar to a traditional book library that you'll all be familiar with, but instead of books, it's things. So the kind of basis of the idea is that we've all got so much stuff within our garages and our cupboards that we may buy once to use for one project, and then it will sit in the back of the cupboard and we never use it again. So there's a really brilliant stat that Benthyg used that the average drill, which I'm sure we've all got in our garage somewhere, is used for 7 minutes in its lifetime, and that's it. So things like carpet cleaners, pressure washers, sewing machines, kids' party equipment, all of those type of things can be borrowed at a library of things, including things where we're really looking at the kind of impact of single-use plastic. So children's fancy dress, for example. We don't know how quickly they grow out of it. We know how much plastic goes into those costumes, and really they can be shared amongst lots of different communities and borrowed from the library. The other element of a library of things is that it's there's no barriers to access, so it's really low cost. For example, a pressure washer might be £5 to rent for the week. And you can also exchange time credits or volunteer hours for borrowing those items too, if you can't afford to pay for the item. So it's about being really, really accessible and sharing those resources across the communities. Lots of different things you can see to borrow there. Our garden games down the bottom right there are particularly popular in the summer. We get lots of borrows of garden games. So there are all kinds of things that you can get from a library of things. Both organisations have extensive networks across Wales. So there are 32 libraries of things across the country now, with many more due to open. And in terms of repair cafes, we have around 140 in our network. Wales has by far the largest network in the UK of community repair cafes, which, given our size, is pretty impressive. We've got one in pretty much every community across the country now. And for both organisations, the aim is to open as many of these spaces as possible. We want everyone to have equal and easy access to these spaces. So we'd like to see as many as possible open. In terms of the impact of these spaces, so for repair cafes across the network, we fixed over 26,000 items, which is a huge carbon emission saving. And we've saved people over £1 million in free repairs. So there's that environmental impact again, but also that kind of social impact, particularly in a cost of living crisis that we're seeing at the moment. In terms of the libraries, they've had an equally big impact. So 21,000 borrows, saved people nearly over £500,000, and nearly 250,000 of kilograms of carbon saved as well. Their most borrowed item is a carpet cleaner. That's a really popular one. We see lots of borrows of the carpet cleaner. But as I say, there's extensive inventories of items that you can borrow from the libraries. So we're seeing really, really significant impacts of these spaces across the country. As I touched upon, there's also huge social benefit to these spaces. And actually what we find is that for most people accessing a repair cafe or using a repair cafe, they are not there in the hope of saving the planet. They're maybe not motivated by climate change, or they don't view a repair cafe as a climate change initiative. They're there for many other motivations, for example, saving money. So this lady down the bottom here, she had her Dyson vacuum cleaner repaired at Conway Repair Cafe, and she saved over £200, which was a really significant saving for her family. And it was right in the lead up to Christmas. So it made a really big difference to her and her family. And we're seeing lots of kind of press coverage on how these types of spaces and these types of initiatives can really be beneficial support services in the cost of living crisis. We've also got, as I said, the opportunity to help reduce social isolation and loneliness. So repair cafes bring lots and lots of people together. They're often very centered around teamwork. So as you can see in this bottom picture here, we all have lots of volunteers working on one item. It's very sort of inclusive problem solving. And when we had to close lots of our repair cafes during COVID, the thing that people missed wasn't necessarily the fixing, it was all of the friendships that they've made at the repair cafe. So they really are a lovely way of bringing communities together and helping support people who otherwise may not have any kind of connection or access to their community. We get lots of sentimental items as well. I often get the comparison of Radio 1's, BBC One's repair shop, which we do sometimes have some fixes a little bit like that, but slightly less fairy lights and crying involved. But things like very sentimental teddy bears. This cushion at the top, this is a gentleman from the Maesteg Repair Cafe, and he very sadly lost his wife soon before this repair cafe, and she had a favourite umbrella that was broken, and whilst they couldn't mend the umbrella, it was kind of beyond fixing. They turned the umbrella fabric into an umbrella cushion that he could have, and it reminded him of his wife. So we do get lots of items as well that really mean things to people and really have a sort of sentimental story behind them. And then finally, they're very much intergenerational spaces. So they bring people together across generations, and help facilitate intergenerational skills share a lot of the time as well. So there's huge amounts of social good that these spaces are providing. In terms of where next, so we have the largest network of repair cafes in the UK. We've got coverage in most communities now across Wales. So what are we looking to achieve next? And this is primarily from the point of view of Repair Cafe Wales, but there are similar goals for Benthyg as well. As I mentioned, we always want to continue growing the network. These spaces tend to run once a month, pop up in community centres, and that's great, but there's lots and lots of things that we need to be fixing. So there's lots of scope for more of these to open. And what we're looking at the moment is how we can engage different types of communities. So we've been very much focused on kind of geographical communities, so every town and village and city in Wales having a repair cafe. And now what we're broadening out into is what else might that look like? So workplaces, for example, or school communities, various different education communities, health communities. Where are the different spaces that we're not accessing people at the moment, and where we can provide this service? We also want to look to normalise repair and reuse. So this is a key aim of the Welsh Government's Beyond Recycling strategy, is to see repair and reuse as mainstream and as normalised as recycling is today. So still, whilst even though we have the largest network of repair cafes, even though these are everywhere in Wales, we know that for most people, when something breaks, the kind of immediate instinct is to throw that item away and to order a new one on Amazon next day delivery. And that's because it's easy, it's convenient, it's accessible. But what we're trying to do is work to change that mindset in people. And it's a big task. It took us, about 30 years to normalise recycling and to get to the place where we are now in Wales. So we know it's not going to happen overnight. But there are several ways that we are trying to normalise this behaviour and see it as the new norm when something breaks. That includes projects like Remake Newport. So this is a partnership project between Repair Cafe Wales and Benthyg Cymru. And this is Wales's first high street repair and reuse hub. So the aim of this project, which has been running for, it'll be 4 years in October, was to think about whether we could use these type of circular economy initiatives to help regenerate high streets. So Newport has the most empty shop units of any high street in the UK. So we really picked the most challenging place we could operate. But to see whether we can better engage citizens with repair and reuse by putting it smack bang on the high street, having regular opening hours like you would expect from a shop space, and giving people better access to the repair cafe, particularly because normally repair cafes will just pop up once a month, whereas here we've got that permanent space open 4 days a week where people can come in and drop off their item. What this space has also enabled us to do is to partner with lots of other circular economy initiatives. So, for example, we have litter picking kits in partnership with Keep Wales Tidy. The space itself is owned by Newport Housing Association, so we can work closely with their tenants. We work closely with the council as well, and we provide various different workshops and skills building sessions. So the space has become very well utilised by the community as well, and it enables us to offer lots more services than we can within a pop-up shop. We see a pop-up cafe, sorry. We see a much higher success rate of fixing as well in these spaces. Obviously, there's more time and resource to be able to fix the slightly more complicated items that we wouldn't be able to fix within a pop-up cafe. And of all the libraries of things across Wales, this has the highest levels of borrowing. So it's been a really lovely, successful project for Newport. Other ways that we're trying to normalise repair is through comms. So our brilliant comms officer has to create TikTok so we can try and engage younger audiences, but we have a TikTok account now, and we also do various different comms campaigns to try and figure out what it is that's best motivating people to engage with repair. This graph at the top is from some research that RAP carried out a couple of years ago around kind of levels of awareness of repair cafes. And we can see that about 33% had either heard of or seen a repair cafe. So about 1 in 3, which is fairly significant for the size of organisation we are, but there's still lots and lots of room there for growth. And we know that repair cafes are not a difficult sell. They're not particularly controversial, and if you're telling someone we can fix your laptop for free and you'll get a slice of cake and a cup of tea, they're pretty willing to get on board. But the challenge is making sure people have heard of these initiatives in the first place. And that's a really key barrier to helping to normalise these services, is making people know where they are, how they can access them, and what they are. And so what we found through various comms campaigns is there's sort of 3 key drivers for behaviour change in this space. Money savings seems to be the key driver of engagement with us online. Second place is environmental messaging, so kind of teaching people about how they can help save the planet through fixing their items. And then third is the kind of community messaging around how this can benefit people from a well-being angle. And often we find the kind of sentimental stories of the repair tie really nicely into that angle. So we've been testing various messages to see how people engage and to try and engage the most diverse group of people that we can with the movement. And in February, we ran a campaign called Fix It Feb. Hopefully some of you saw it. And this was the first time we've run this campaign. We are due to run it again next year. And it was a month-long comms campaign aimed at raising as much awareness of repair cafes as possible. We were really lucky to be supported by Climate Action Wales and the Welsh Government in this campaign. So we had things like, for the first time, we had out-of-home advertising at train stations and at supermarkets and shopping centres in various cities across Wales. We had some social media influencers filming sort of vlog footage of going along to a repair cafe to show how easy it is to engage with the spaces and how nice an experience it is, and to kind of communicate that with their trusted audiences. We were very lucky to be supported by Hugh Davis in promoting the campaign, and we had lots of kind of press and social media coverage behind it. The campaign achieved a reach of over 500,000 people. We had 100% more community sign-ups than we had on the previous year, and 91% more volunteer sign-ups. So it had really wide-reaching impact, which was brilliant. And it also helped us secure funding to run this project again next year. So we're hoping this will become an annual campaign where we can build momentum each year and raise more and more awareness of repair cafes to get more people engaging in these activities. Another element that we're looking at progressing and that Benthig is looking at progressing as well is engaging younger people. So younger people are a demographic that we have historically really struggled to engage. They are kind of really missing from the repair cafe movement. The large majority of our volunteers are older retired people. And what we need is to see kind of skills passed down to younger generations so that we retain those fixing skills. We're not finding that repair skills are being taught in schools in the same way that they once were. And we're also finding that repair skills aren't being passed down through generations as they once were. Most of our fixing volunteers are not professional fixers. They've not come from a professional fixing background. They've had those skills taught to them by their grandma or by their father or whoever it might be, and those skills have been taught down, and they've been fixing for 40 years and have this absolute wealth of knowledge and skill. And what we're finding is that's not happening at the moment, and that's obviously a challenge for the industry. So we're doing various projects to help try and engage younger people more in this movement, both from a comms perspective with TikTok, but also with things like running schools workshops, running workshops in colleges, setting up repair cafes within universities. But there's still lots more work to be done here, I think, particularly around repair and reuse qualifications, so giving younger people viable job routes through these skills as well. This is a stat from, again, the same sort of research report from RAP, that if repair and reuse practices were increased by 25%, an estimated 27,000 jobs would be created in the circular economy. So we know there's huge potential here for growth if we can see younger people better engaged with repair and those skills being better embedded within education and curriculum. And then something else that we work on very regularly is the right to repair movement. So this is it's a European-wide movement, but kind of we work on it from a UK perspective that champions the rights for consumers to be able to repair their own items. So it's things like, I'm sure you may all have noticed when a new iPhone comes out, your iPhone starts to slow down a little bit. It's things like that. And for example, if an iPhone breaks, the back is completely sealed, so we can't get to the battery inside without kind of cracking the phone open. And these are things called planned obsolescence. It's where manufacturers are creating products that are designed to have a set lifespan, normally a very short lifespan in comparison to the resources that go in to create that item. They may also do things like price spare parts at a really high level. So instead of buying the spare part you need to repair your item, it makes more economic sense to buy an entirely new item. So the right to repair movement lobbies against things like this. It asks for fairly priced spare parts. It asks for repair qualifications for young people. It asks for legislation changes for manufacturers so they can't create products with planned obsolescence in mind. It's a huge movement, and it's a fairly slow moving one that we've seen less success since we've left the EU, but France is really championing the way in this space as well. And the way that we contribute to this very important movement is all the data that we collect from communities in Wales. So every time something is fixed in one of our communities across the country, we fill in a form which collects data on what the item is, why it's broken, what the make and model is, if it can't be fixed, why it can't be fixed. And that wealth of data is fed into a kind of UK-wide collection of data, which can then draw insights of, okay, what are the things that we regularly can't fix? Who are the repeat offenders when it comes to brands? Apple and Dyson being key contenders there. But what things are we constantly, we've got the skills to fix it, but the item and how it's designed is not allowing us to do that. And that's really useful because it means that our volunteers who are working on quite a hyper-local level can see this kind of global impact that they're having. A couple of years ago in Cardiff, we launched the UK Repair and Reuse Declaration, which is a kind of call to government to support these right to repair measures. And we've held 2 events in Parliament to kind of engage support for the declaration. It's got around 500 signatories at the moment, I believe. Your organisations are very welcome and encouraged to sign the declaration if you wish. And all of our groups across Wales have done so as well. Where some of that that data may be really important for the right to repair movement is particularly around kind of why we can't fix the items that we can't fix. At most of our repair cafes, the success rate sits around 80%. We fix the large majority of things that come in, which is brilliant. Most things can be fixed. But it's really useful for us to look at why the things we can't fix can't be fixed. So this is a kind of snapshot from our database. And you can see there that for 26% of the items that we were looking at this month, the product was just too worn out. There was nothing we could do, and that is the case for some items. They just are beyond repair. But for the remaining items there's things we can do about all of those items. So spare parts not being available, for example, it either may be that the manufacturer has not produced the spare part, or that they've created a spare part that's far too high. Research shows that consumers are only really likely to engage with buying a spare part if it's about 25% of the cost of the original item. If it goes beyond that, then consumers are unlikely to pay for a spare part, which, you know, is fair enough. It doesn't make economic sense to do it otherwise. But manufacturers know this when they're pricing spare parts. Repair information not being made available is a key one. So manuals not being made available online, so we can't access the information needed to understand how to fix the items. And then no way to open the product is a real bugbear of ours. So that's like with the iPhone I was telling you, where it's completely sealed. It's also very common on children's toys where they're sort of cased in plastic, and the bit that often breaks is the kind of mechanical bit, you know, the lights or the sound or the movement part of the toy, and that will be right inside that plastic casing that we can't get to without cracking that open. So lots of different things that we can do. We can do something about that with the right to repair movement. So whilst this is a very sort of local, community-driven grassroots initiative, it has a much wider reach when we pull all of that data together and all of that impact together across the country. So in terms of how you can get involved if you wish, there are lots of different ways that your organisations or you as individuals can join the repair and reuse movement. I would really encourage you to go along to a library of things or a repair cafe if you've not already. Look up where your nearest one is. There are loads of them across Wales now, so there will be one locally to you. And have a think about next time something breaks, whether you can repair it yourself or whether you can take it along to one of our lovely volunteers to fix for you. If your organisation is keen to get involved, again, there are various ways to do that. So we've worked with lots of organisations across Wales to help them start their own repair cafe or library of things, or their own repair and reuse hub. We most recently worked with Wrexham Council to help them develop a repair and reuse hub, and also to launch the first locker system for libraries of things. So a little bit like Amazon lockers or kind of parcel collection lockers, but for libraries of things items. So they've launched the first of those in Wales. So if your organisation is looking at having one of these type of initiatives for your service users or for your staff or whoever it might be, then you're very welcome to get in touch to have a conversation of how we might be able to support you to do that. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll be running Fix It Feb again next February. So we'd really encourage you to get involved and help support the campaign to help it reach as many people as possible and really grow that awareness. We're really hoping when WRAP repeats that survey, I think next year, that we'll have higher than 33% of people understanding this movement and being aware of the movement. And I think that is it. Did anyone have any questions? See if there's any in the chat.
Catherine?
Yeah, not so much a question, but just to say that was incredible, Phoebe. Actually, I didn't know half of that. I know we have one in our local town. I go past the banners quite regularly and think, oh, that's on today, but really didn't know what they did and the breadth of what they do in there. So that's actually really, really interesting. I'm just wondering from an organisation point of view, what how we can make that bigger, how we can do that in the organisation. I mean, from a business point of view, we're often looking at trying to fix the odd thing, or we're trying to regas chairs, for example, normal tiles chairs. Technically quite a simple job, I'm led to believe. However, knowing where to go or how to go for it, mission impossible, really. So I'd be really, really interested if there's anything that you can think of around that scale that perhaps we can use, because we are, I'm Public Health Wales, we are all about sustainability. I've gone through the cake programme. I did once have a cake, but we have gone through the cake programme, and it's something that we do in all our sites. We always reuse and move furniture around, and you know, beg, borrow, and steal. In many cases, about furniture that we need. So trying to make improvements or reuse what we have. And I say at the moment, you know, chairs are my biggest problem, and regassing them, you know, that would be an instant quick fix, and probably one that the NHS everywhere is crying out for, because otherwise these chairs go on a skip and into landfill, which is daft, because they're perfectly good. So any ideas that you have on that, I'll be grateful, but I'm not expecting you to be able to fix that today. But yeah, no, really, really interesting. Thank you. That I didn't know half of that, so that was really interesting.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's definitely something we could look at to see whether that skill exists within our volunteer pool. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. We've got such a wealth of skill amongst the volunteers. We've got over 1,000 volunteers across the country. So yeah, let me have a look into it and see where that skill sits, and what we could do about that.
Absolutely fine. That'd be great. Lovely. I can do a good cup of tea and biscuits if need be.
Perfect. That's what they need. Thank you, Catherine.
On that, Phoebe, I know a couple of years ago, certainly when we were chatting, there was a suggestion that a directory of repairers, I suppose, could be created, not necessarily simply for domestic items that you tend to repair. So is there a directory that you're aware of that might, for argument's sake, include chair regassers or office chair repair? This organisation, so Orange Box springs to mind for me, but I know that Orange Box can only repair their own manufactured chairs. So that's one suggestion there, Catherine. But, yeah, does that exist?
Yes, kind of. So there's a repair directory that was created by Resource Efficiency Wales, which doesn't cover every local authority in Wales, but covers, I believe, the large majority of them, where repair businesses can register. It also highlights the repair cafes within those spaces. And you can kind of filter it by type of item that you're looking for. So I would say that's probably the most suitable thing in that space to look at, but it won't have everything and everyone on there. Yeah, but it will be a good starting point, I'd say.
Could you share that with us, and we'll forward it on to all of those on the call? We do have.
Send it over afterwards.
We've got a useful links section on our website, and Laura's now going to be rolling her eyes because we're trying to reduce the size and stuff on our website rather than increase. But that might be something that we could drop into the useful links page on the website. And I think it looks like Johnny's got something to add. Johnny, can I bring you in?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I don't want to jump the queue. I think there are a few people ahead of me.
Oh, sorry. I saw your hand. So while we're on the topic,
it's Costa. It's Costa.
Okay.
Sorry.
Costa.
Hi, folks. Hi, Phoebe.
Hi.
I think we've met. Work with RAP.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Really informative. It's not a question. It's really more of a comment on my experience of the Repair Cafe Wales. Really good, and I'm glad you're collecting those stats because it really does reflect some of the challenges that we're finding in our research with manufacturers and consumers. I took a toaster once down to Repair Cafe in the student union, and I thought it was going to be a real simple fixing element, and lo and behold, it couldn't be fixed because it wasn't designed to be dismantled. The element was not designed to be replaced, and I actually phoned up the manufacturer to sort of see what the deal was, and the answer I got was, we assume consumers cannot fix their own products. We design them to not be repaired because we assume we cannot fix them. Which is just a classic case of design for obsolescence. You know what I mean? And it was a few years. It wasn't even old, frankly. But we're supporting this movement as well, and I know my colleague Jen Marco's on the call. She's leading our repair and reuse side of stuff. So we're keen to work with anyone who's got any challenges, and work with you guys that need some support in overcoming any of these challenges, and how we can look at that design for recyclability, and sort of push beyond the sort of single-use culture that we've got. So thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Costa.
Johnny, did you want to come in now?
It's Grania. You stop
next,
jumping
sorry.
queue, Gary.
Yeah, so I'll sit back at this event, but what I will say is, before I forget, Catherine, there is a small pot of funding within Welsh Government to support innovations, and so if you wanted to maybe develop a way for the NHS generally to access chair repair people, then that might fit. If you drop Jill or I a line, we
Okay.
could point you to those people in Welsh Gov that are trying to get that small pot up and running. And so, sorry, I'll stop here and let Grania come in.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to also say I love repair cafes. I met my very good friend Sai Giridhar at a repair cafe, so it has sentimental meaning to me. And in one of my roles at the moment, I work at an off-grid sustainable community hub where we have a repair cafe. And we've done recently done a school repair cafe. So we went to the school and we showed the children how to use a sewing machine to fix their school uniform. And yeah, I think there's lots of ways of using it educationally, and that there's lots of ways of increasing how many repairs there are and how much you teach people and how much you bring people together. But our repair cafe, which we run monthly, is actually getting quieter. We know that ones in busier places are getting busier, and in fact there might be like a queuing system, and some places have them running every day of the week, but ours is getting quieter. So I was kind of interested in maybe your ideas of the best marketing strategies. I did like what you were saying about the sentimental or human stories, where maybe you're sharing what that repair meant to somebody as a way of engaging people better. So we'll definitely start doing that now. But yeah, if you had any other suggestions beyond, we're doing quite standard, social media and email lists to advertise, but the numbers are dropping rather than growing. And I've got a few other things to say, but I don't know if I should stop there and let you
Sure, I'll quickly answer that one first, but I can pick it up with you offline as well if you want some more kind of in-depth support on that, because very happy to help. But I guess just very briefly, we find local press is a really useful source of promoting the repair cafes, and we've got some press release templates that you're welcome to use. Also looking at that different messaging, so yes, completely around the sentimental repairs, and we find for those video stories work really well when a volunteer is chatting through how they fixed it or a person is chatting through what it means to them. So videos work really well in that space. I would also look at the money saving angle. It's obviously not the be all and end all of this work, but it is what we're finding is really important to people at the moment. So you could look at working out the average amount of money that your repair cafe has saved since it's opened, for example, as a way of promoting to people. Because I think people often don't think about that connection between fixing something, therefore they don't have to buy something new, therefore they save £100 or whatever it might be. So I'd look at that different type of messaging as well. And then we find local kind of piggybacking onto existing local groups works really nicely. So either through sort of Facebook groups that you might have for your village or town or whatever it might be, local groups for parents, local groups for schools, local groups for gardening enthusiasts, whatever it might be, looking where there's existing communities and networks in your local area and advertising to them, we find often works quite nicely as well, because everyone needs something fixed. So there'll be a way of tapping into any of those groups, really.
Great, thank you. That's really useful. Excellent. And actually on that note, I thought I would share that last week one of our volunteer fixers fixed a £4,000 organ with a 1 pence part. So it cost 1 penny to fix this thing that would have cost £4,000 to replace. So So I just wanted to say as well, somebody was asking about a directory, and it made me think that recently we got an email from an organisation called We Are Repairs, and I wondered if you had heard of them and if you were working in any way with them, or your opinions, because they've kind of popped up out of nowhere. But I think the idea is that they have a directory for the fixers, so people who are volunteering at repair cafes can add themselves to their directory. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I've only they kind of popped up to us as well, very, very recently. So no, I haven't worked with them, and I don't know them well. I think, I guess my sort of surface level opinion, having not spoken to them, is that promotion of repair in any form is a good thing. We often get asked about competing with local business. We often get the question of kind of how do you not kind of compete with other local businesses when you're offering what you're doing for free? And the reality is we don't, because a lot of the things that we're fixing, there isn't a business model for it. If you try to take your broken toaster or your vacuum cleaner or your lawnmower somewhere to be fixed, you're going to struggle to find a business that will do that for you. So really, most of the items that we're looking at and most of the things that we're throwing away, there isn't a business that we can compete with. Where there is, so particularly around bike repairs or clothing alterations, we won't offer those if there's a local business that does them. So as a kind of rule of thumb, we will only do clothing repairs, not alterations, to make sure we're not competing with businesses there. And bike repairs will only do it if there's not a local bike shop available in the vicinity. So we're not competing with businesses, but I do encourage the kind of promotion of repair businesses. I think the more repair options there are, the better. There isn't a shortage of items that we need to fix, so the more people working in this space, the better. But I think there's a large role to play for the community repair sector, because there isn't an appropriate business model for a lot of the things that we're throwing away, because they're just not valuable enough. You know, if we're paying £5 for a toaster, no one's going to pay any money to fix it. So yeah, so I'm quite pro networks and promoting businesses, and so I think that's what they're doing, but I would need to look into it a little bit more.
Great, yeah, thank you. That's been really, really helpful. Thanks.
No problem.
Johnny, did you still have a question?
Oh yeah, thanks. Phoebe, that's really interesting to oh sorry, it's Johnny here from the Future Generations Commissioners team. It's really interesting to hear that around how you try not to compete with local business, because I've been thinking about how you you sort of sell the idea of repair cafes to local councils, and that sort of tension between councils wanting economic development, and then this agenda is in a way sort of challenging that. So that's really great to sort of hear that. You can see that being really important for lots of conversations. I was wondering, I mean, there's loads of opportunities, and we've started talking about how to promote Repair Cafe in Benthig through our sort of channels with the public sector. So I'm really excited about that, and great to hear what Public Health Wales are doing already. Just a couple of practical questions. Do you ever find that there's possibility to signpost locally to repair cafes from food banks and food pantries, whether that's something interesting worth exploring, and also local food partnerships? There's just a huge amount of development around food, and it's very unfortunate that food bank usage is so high, but that could be an opportunity to signpost. And then just a practical question on do you ever get feedback around accessibility in terms of opening times? So just thinking about busy working people, and I don't know if you sort of explore like drop-offs at sort of different hours, or I don't know if that ever comes up as an issue in terms of people's time that they can dedicate to doing these kind of more circular activities, which is what we want, but we know time is so challenging for many people. Thanks.
Yes, sure. So to start with the food bank question, yes. So what repair cafes do really brilliantly is they act as a lovely sort of initiative where we can bolt on lots of other initiatives. So lots of our repair cafes, I'd say the majority of our repair cafes don't just run a repair cafe. Lots of them will also have uniform swap shops or seed swaps, or operate in partnership with their local food bank. We've got some where they do kind of energy saving guidance seminars at the same time, and others that do workshops. So they're brilliant spaces for engaging with other similar initiatives. And we do a lot of signposting kind of the other way. So we have a cost of living support sort of signposting document on our website where we've collated various different organisations that we work with, including lots of food banks, to help signpost people towards those. But I think there is probably more opportunity to do signposting the other way as well. So lots of our groups will engage with their local food bank. It's not something we've done nationally, kind of centrally, but definitely something to consider. And then your other question, sorry, remind me of your other question. It was around...
Oh, it was around opening times and sort of
opening times,
accessibility.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, and
yes, we have the balance. The kind of challenge and the balance there is around volunteer availability. So if the volunteers aren't available, we can't run the repair cafe. And generally we find the weekends work a lot better for volunteers being able to be available for sort of 3 hours. So we do have some repair cafes that run during the week. They generally tend to see lower engagement from the public and from the volunteers. What we don't massively have is kind of evening weekday slots. So that is maybe something to explore. But again, if volunteers need to be readily available to run those sessions. With the remake space in Newport, we're obviously open Wednesdays to Saturdays, so we have got that weekday opening, and so we do see higher levels of engagement from the public there. And we have volunteers that come in every day to that space. So there is a possibility of creating better accessibility through those type of spaces. But those permanent spaces also require a lot more funding. They require staffing. So there's benefits and downfalls to both models really, but we find for most communities in the pop-up model, the weekend tends to see more engagement. But I do appreciate the point that it will create challenges for some people engaging with it.
That's great. Thanks so much. And if it's at all helpful to connect with Trussell Trust, Food Bank Wales and local food partnerships, really happy to set that up. If you can just let me know. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I'll pick that up with you on email. That would be great. That'd be really a nice partnership to make. Any other questions? No, I think that's everything.
I have put in the chat, Phoebe, that we will make the slides available. So if you'd like to PDF those, and we can send them out. Anyone that wants to drop any information into the chat, please do so now, and we'll try and share that with everyone.